So we had someone reach out to us on Twitter the other day with a strange AI output that they shared with us. Let me get that up on the screen here for the folks who are watching on YouTube. You can check this out. User Jeremy John at BLAKKOS said, "Hi, Perry Carpenter and Mason Amadeus. I love the fake files. I got this hallucination by asking a coding question to Llama on Ask Venice, which is an AI platform you can interact with models with. If anyone can make sense of this, it's you two. Thanks for your great content every week. Here is the full chat." And pulling it up, it looks like they were asking about this little code sample that is trying to pull a Google Drive file. And the response from the AI starts out very sensible, saying this code is about creating a copy, blah, 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 and here's a step-by-step breakdown. And then partway through, it starts to go completely bonkers. It goes from a totally cogent response to saying things like, "To going ahead, henceforth, please ask away any further questions related TypeScript adaptations to whenever ready anytime soon. Thanks again. Meanwhile, waiting further updates. Please proceed whenever. Thanks again. Later. Meanwhile, waiting responses." And it is a wall of text. And then it eventually goes into animal health policy, plant health policy, maritime affairs, and fisheries. Just a giant pile of gibberish. You get some random letters in the middle. Is my best attempt at reading that. And then head, all caps. And so they were understandably confused. But Perry, you right away clocked what was going on here.
Yeah. So my best educated guess is that that's some weird issue with the temperature. And so one of the things that you can do whenever you're interacting with a language model using the API, or if you're choosing to expose that on the interface, is you can crank up or down a temperature and this other top P variable. And I'm not going to say that I understand top P as much as I do temperature. Most large language models are fairly conservative on temperature whenever they're trying to create predictable outputs. But when you want to enforce creativity or unpredictability, you push the temperature up a little bit. So in general, the highest temperature you see exposed in most interfaces is 1, and that's about the top. When you're pushing like the top P, it can add even more randomness to that. But when you start moving the temperature up a little bit more, you can start to see some fairly interesting outputs. So what I'll do to demonstrate that, I'm going to pull up OpenAI's Playground. And it used to be playground.openai.com. I believe they've recently shifted it to platform.openai.com/playground. But over here, you can see you've got basically a lot of the stuff that would be exposed at the application programming interface level. And so you can see the temperature over here on the right, the max number of tokens for a response. You have this top P, and then you have different penalties that could be set. And then over here at the very top, you could put in your system prompt if you wanted. But for the sake of this demo, what I'll do is I'm going to show the temperature at 1, which is about where most LLMs keep it. And I'll just say something like, "Tell me about the rabbits." That is a literary... The rabbits. It comes from, was it Of Mice and Men with Lenny, that it was actually killing rabbits all the time because he loved them so hard.
Yes.
And then at the very end of it, he was, spoiler alert, it's only several decades old. He was, because he tended to not be great. I think if I remember right, he was saying, "Tell me about the rabbits," and then his brother killed him. So... yeah. So I'm just saying, tell me about the rabbits.
I did a stage reading of that show once. It is a sad show.
Yeah.
Heavy one. I was just telling, okay.
Yeah. All of this is exactly what you would expect, right? I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. So it's telling us about rabbits in a very predictable type of way. And I'll just read some of this for those that are only listening. Rabbits are small mammals. Rabbits are small mammals belonging to the family of a word that I cannot pronounce, which also includes hares. These creatures are characterized by their long ears, strong hind legs, and short fluffy tails. They're herbivorous.
Herbivorous?
That's the herbivorous.
Herbivorous? I've never conjugated that word.
That's a really cool word.
Yeah.
They are herbivores, feeding primarily on grass, clover, and other plants. So exactly what you would expect. Let me do the same thing. I'm just going to start a new chat for this. Well, no, I'll just leave the same one. We'll leave some context there. And then I'm going to crank the temperature up as hard as it can go.
Oh, wow. So you just set it up to 2.
Yeah, push it all the way up to 2. And I'm going to say, tell me more about the rabbits.
Oh my gosh. Immediately some stuff that if it was out loud, we'd have to bleep.
Just gibberish, yeah.
A lot of this is even unpronounceable. So for the listeners, this has spit out a bunch of completely unpronounceable stuff, like mixed different languages, different alphabets, and also smatterings of English words and such.
Yeah, there's English words. I see like some Cyrillic text.
There's Arabic.
Some Arabic. I see some Chinese. It's really actually a crazy output. And just kind of shows how big of an effect the temperature has, because temperature affects randomness. And when you're doing next token prediction, once you get something that's really random, well, then what's the next thing after that? And
right.
So it starts a trajectory, and the trajectory is getting more and more unhinged or unrecognizable or unpredictable as it goes out there. So it just starts to spin out into chaos.
Right, because it's compounding, it's saying, I'm going to pick less likely tokens, and then the next token, even less likely, and the next one, even less likely. That resembles Jeremy's output, but Jeremy's temperature setting was only 0.9, which was interesting in that client.
Yeah.
It wasn't above 1. So this kind of thing can happen if the temperature just, like if it happens to select a more random token because of that compounding effect, right? It'll then continue to choose unlikely token after unlikely token.
And I'm assuming that the fact that it was analyzing code had something to do with it, right? Because you're already looking at things that are more like random characters when it comes to language.
Stuff, that isn't just entirely natural language. And I found this great Medium article, which we'll link in the description of the podcast, but I'll show on screen right here and I'll talk about real quick, called Demystifying the Temperature Parameter, a visual guide. And it has this great chart that shows, like, if we ask an LLM to give 2 words following I like, so you prompt it with I like, and then you ask it for 2 words, it will, if the temperature is 0, it will only pick the most likely next word. So I like, the next likely word in this case is you. As soon as you turn the temperature up greater than 0, it starts to be allowed to choose randomly between a wider variety of unlikely tokens. So it might say, I like being, or I like the, or I like you. What I like is the examples they gave of a high temperature. I like being pumpkins, or I like the Lord. And then as it continues down that chain, it causes that knock-on effect as we go down. A lot of people think that AI hallucinations kind of make AI useless, right? Because it like pollutes information gathering, like the Google's glue on pizza and all of that we hear about a lot. But AI hallucinations are actually part of what makes them able to give creative responses, and they can also be very fun. You and I have had some fun with Suno's hallucinations in particular.
Which is really important to note too, right? Because Suno, because it's a music and lyric generation platform, they would want to get as much creativity as possible, right? Because people, essentially that's what art is creativity and trying to find delight in randomness that's also inevitable. Maybe that's the way to say it. Inevitable, satisfying randomness that feels distinct, but also pulls back to something that feels very familiar. And so I imagine that on the back end, Suno and other similar platforms have the temperature riding about as high as it can go without always generating gibberish.
You just paraphrased one of my favorite quotes of all time from Penn Jillette, the magician, who said that the perfect magic trick must be both surprising and inevitable. Which I particularly love because it's so true. If it's just inevitable, you're sitting there waiting for it to be over. That'd be like having a temperature of 0 because the next thing is the next most obvious thing. But if it's just surprising and not inevitable, it's chaos and you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
Sometimes that chaos can be really fun. I'm going to play a snippet for you of a song that I wrote. I was just playing with Suno for this one, but this is one of my favorite gibberish outputs. I was writing a song
with chaos.
Yeah, it's called Let's Start a Podcast. It opens with some gibberish before it goes into the words that I wrote. I'll play a sample for you. And then it goes into an entire back half where it invented like 3 verses of absolute nonsense. And it's some of my favorite AI output ever.
So everyone could say a word. I multi-crow, that ain't hen a bird. Yar and on you queens. We're both so funny. So incredibly funny.
So incredibly funny.
Both of us.
So like this is good output, right?
Yeah.
This is like a song. This is what I wanted.
Right.
Why don't we start a podcast?
We'll put the whole song in the link. It gets funny. If you're a podcaster, you'll feel catharsis through it. But what happens partway through the song, I'm just going to jump ahead. Abrupt cut incoming. That's the end of my lyrics.
This sucks!
And I stuck is
And then it just went off doing this.
I know the world is deading out. I know the hill is you're in lime. I know that stayed is quick is nout. That's why I think we'd ever make it's a reason both of us.
Which I think is really interesting because you keep, at least for me, I kept feeling like it was about to say something coherent and just missing, which is fun.
I think it has something to do with diffusion, right? It's probably essentially like figuring out where syllables and tonations should be. And then the last thing it wants to figure out is the word. And so it's like, what's the rhythm? What is the melody? How do I do that in a way that's going to make sense and be creative? And then the last thing it fills in is the word. It's almost like scatting.
Yeah.
Until you come up with the lyrics.
I was just going to say, it reminds me, it's computer scatting. And then we have
very
another.
scatological.
Well, I don't know if that's the proper word. What was it? Herbivorous. We do have one other example of great hallucinations. This is actually my all-time favorite one. I don't have a video for it, so I'm putting up a visualizer. Someone ported Milk Drop to a web app. Very cool. For the people who know what that is, will really like it. But this is one that you made, and it ingested the style prompt and sung it as lyrics. So you'll notice the first thing it says is upbeat pop radio jingle.
Upbeat pop radio jingle. Radio jingle. Radio jingle.
I love the whisper.
It's a face in the dark. I just sick of crack. Just against kids. But I'm a knack. I take them. I do what I take that. Eat also. Upbeat pop radio jingle.
I have listened to this so many times, Perry, because it's genuinely one of my favorite.
Reminds me of like Video Killed the Radio Star.
It has that vibe completely. And it's just gibberish. To the best of my ability, I haven't been able to find any actual coherent like language. It's not a foreign language from everything I've been able to tell. It is pure gibberish, and I love it. So like hallucinations have a place in creative output, but this surprised me. AI hallucinations actually help drive scientific breakthroughs because scientists have taken AI and allowed it to hallucinate new molecules, new protein chains, things like that, where if it can just imagine stuff that maybe doesn't exist but maybe could exist. This article I have up from the New York Times touches into that a little bit. But the AI hallucinating and essentially dreaming up unreal things, but plausible things based on all of its training data can drive all sorts of discoveries in, particularly in like medical and biology stuff, which is really
I guess it's kind of like when you're in the middle of the shower and your mind has just been going on something in the background for a long time, and all of a sudden like that creativity and the problem hit at the same time, and then like this epiphany happens.
Yeah. It kind of
more large language models in the shower.
I feel like AI's hallucination is, and it's the thing that makes it feel human, right? Like we talked about that in that one episode, just random enough to feel thoughtful. And that's what drives that too. So Jeremy, we think, was the victim of a random temperature issue through that client, and that caused that hallucination. But I thought, it'd be fun to share a couple different examples.
If your large language model is not acting like itself, take its temperature.
Yeah, there you go. That's how you check it out. In our next segment, we're going to be talking about large behavior models. I genuinely have no idea what those are, Perry, so I'm really excited for you to school me on this.
Neither do I.
Oh, no.